From silent abuse to real danger, what happens behind closed doors? This is not love, the darkest relationship stories you'll ever hear. Ladies, has anyone here ever been punished with silence? I have. And it's a special kind of cruelty. When someone just stops talking to you, ignores you for weeks because, in his mind, you said something wrong. The longest for me? 6 months. And he would never come first. Only me. Always me. And I couldn't leave. I had 2 kids, and he was such a great dad. He once poisoned me with something unknown. I was in a coma for 3 days. Barely survived. All because I told him I wanted to end things. There was no punishment for him at all. My medical report literally said, severe poisoning with a psychotropic substance. In church, he forced me to stand by an icon and yell that I never cheated on him. I begged for forgiveness on my knees. For him being offended. I mean, are you kidding me? When he was leaving for a business trip, he said he wouldn't pay the utility bills because, according to him, he wasn't using electricity or water. I had to record video updates every 5 minutes showing what I was doing and where I was. I wasn't allowed to be even 1 minute late. I know other stories too. One woman's husband took her entire salary. Every time he left the house, he checked the meters so she and her daughter wouldn't waste any extra water or electricity. I used to think things like that didn't happen in real life. For months after we broke up, he showed up with a gun, maybe a non-lethal one, I'm not sure. He held me on the balcony for about an hour, in the freezing cold, wearing thin leggings, rubber slippers, and a light jacket. Meanwhile, my little daughter was sleeping inside the apartment. I had rules. No self-expression. No makeup. No bright clothes. No certain foods. I was a vegetarian for 9 years because of him. No alcohol. No music except wordless tracks or mantras. No medication except the most basic stuff. He once choked me because I didn't warm up his bread the way he liked. I said, then don't eat it, and that triggered him. At night he pulled off my blanket and forced me to sit in a cold room with no clothes, to think about my behavior because I accidentally woke him up. That was our last night together. I packed and ran the next day. He shaved my head completely because he cheated and somehow decided it was my fault. He punched me in the face because some random guy at a bar looked at me all evening. He decided I knew him and he was my secret lover. He raised his hand at me because I refused to borrow money for his, let's call them bad substances. He pushed me so far I overdosed on pills. He'd come in, check if I was still alive, and leave. Once, I grabbed a knife just trying to protect myself. He made me lie on the floor at his feet. Destroyed my health. He intentionally caused miscarriages because of his girlfriends. While I was bleeding, he was out having fun with one of them. He pushed me into stage 4 depression. Locked me in the apartment, broke keys so only he could enter. Wouldn't let me go to work. Once, my grandfather carried me out in his arms because I had lost so much weight, over 35 pounds, and couldn't move. He came home drunk, beat me, forced himself on me, and I lost whatever colors life had left. And every time I said I wanted a divorce, my family told me, he's a good man. He's loved by everyone. What will people say? Be patient. He sent men after me, they smashed the door, demanded money, and threatened what they would do to me if I didn't pay. He ran away, leaving me with nothing. Not a single dollar. I had no food for 3 days. My own family told me it was all my fault. I survived 5.5 years of this narcissistic nightmare. He pretended to be a perfect husband at first, crying, begging, saying he loved me, and then showed his real face. He was a medical worker, adored by everyone, and he was my husband. He beat me when I asked where the money from my premarital apartment went. When I was 6 months pregnant, I needed 5 stitches, and he never once helped our child in all 18 years. He threatened, insulted, stalked, because I'd destroyed the family. Once he drove his sports car at high speed, knowing I had a fear of it. He told me he'd crash into a pole on purpose so we'd both die. Stopped 2 meters before hitting it. I was 6 months pregnant, walking home from a friend's place in a snowstorm. He was drunk. He made me take off my clothes on the way, yelling that he paid for them and I had no right to wear them. I walked almost 2 kilometers half undressed in freezing weather. When I came home from the hospital with the baby, he trashed the house, threw pieces of the wall at me, grabbed a knife, tried to come at us, and almost stabbed his own mother when our parents arrived. He was pure danger. I left. And I'm happy now. He spiraled into heavy substance use and passed away 2.5 years ago. He once kicked me out of the car on the highway outside the big city, threw out my things, hit me when I didn't pick up the phone on the first ring. And the grand finale? I got kicked out of my apartment with nowhere to go. I was a single mother with no money. My first husband shoved my head into the toilet because I found evidence of cheating. He beat me while I was pregnant. When I fell, he kicked me on the floor and blocked the door so I couldn't call for help. My second smashed my car with a brick, threatened to burn the apartment door while my kids and I slept, wouldn't let me sleep for nights until I hallucinated. Stole money, took my keys so I couldn't leave, and I sat without food and water. He drove on the wrong side of the road to scare me, saying he didn't care if we crashed. Threatened to jump off a bridge to manipulate me. Pretended to cut his wrists every week. He waited outside my building, trying to steal my bag so I'd be left outside in winter with no keys or phone. Locked me on the balcony in sub-zero temperatures. Ruined holidays, humiliated me online, threatened to leak private photos. I basically lived at the police station. Before my daughter was born, everything was perfect. Then the nightmare started. He interrogated me every night, forced me to prove every step, clinic visits, walks with the baby, with photos, videos, geolocation. Forced intimacy while I slept. Left me outside in winter overnight because he imagined something. Threatened to break my arms. And the cherry on top. He damaged contraception because he wanted another baby, a boy, knowing I wouldn't choose termination. I was trapped until my son went to kindergarten. Only then I could work and escape. He told me I wore a leather jacket too short so men looked at my butt. Refused to go to the gym with me for the same reason. But I couldn't go alone either, because I'd find another man. He ripped out a handful of my hair because I asked him to stop drinking with his friend. I had my 8-month-old daughter in my arms. That day I told him, if he touches me again, I'll defend myself no matter what. He saw in my eyes I meant it. After that, he never touched me again. Another one smashed my head against the wall because I made a joke back at him. One guy lived at my place and banned unhealthy food. I would sneak out and eat pastries in the stairwell, like a criminal, because I just wanted something sweet. And he was a trainer. We lived out of town with no car. In freezing weather, I stood at the bus stop waiting for transport, and he passed me by in a taxi without even looking at me, even though he was going to work too. I waited another 20 minutes in the cold. If I didn't do something perfectly the first time, he'd hit me. If I voiced an opinion, he'd hit me. No lacy underwear. No skirts. Even fitted long clothes were forbidden. I couldn't leave, he wouldn't let me. Last time I tried, he hid my passport. He would come home and go silent for random days. Forced me to turn off water while washing dishes. Didn't allow me to buy anything not on his list, always the cheapest stuff. He never celebrated my achievements. Once, at someone else's birthday, I won a round of bowling, and he got offended and ignored me in front of everyone. Sex was scheduled for weekends because he was too tired from his 9 to 5 where he basically sat at a computer. After a year and a half together, I needed therapy and antidepressants. I had panic attacks and constant anxiety. He kept telling me I was mentally sick. I once apologized because his coworker glanced at my neckline, even though I barely have a chest to look at. He threw out all my clothes over that. Then I paid for meals for him and his family. He promised he'd make dollars per month someday and I should appreciate him as he is. He used to ask me to send my location every time I left the house, supposedly for safety. Later I realized it was just to make sure our paths didn't cross while he was seeing someone else. One day my plans changed and I came home earlier than expected. He clearly hadn't had time to hide anything properly. Some of my things were moved, there were fresh flowers that weren't meant for me, and, let's just say there were signs he wasn't alone earlier. But I pretended not to notice. When he came home, instead of explaining anything, he accused me of cheating because I was late at tennis. Meanwhile, all my things were already packed. When I asked directly, "Was someone here?" he answered, "Yeah, a whole crowd of women." Now he's doing the exact same thing to another girl, posting stories from his car and apartment, while secretly showing up outside my building at night, asking me to come back. The point of this whole story? It's not that we're not enough. It's that some people simply don't change for anyone. He also tried to isolate me from my dad, suggesting inappropriate things just to make me uncomfortable and confused. For 9 years he convinced me he worked in a secret government unit fighting terrorism. He used edited documents, bought fake patches, went on missions, and at the same time worked a regular job. He asked me to pay half of his bills. Whenever I tried to talk about our relationship, he twisted everything, blocked me, ignored me, accused me of messing with his head, and even tried to control my appearance, saying we wouldn't be intimate unless I lost weight. And the only person he regularly bought flowers for was his mom. He was constantly paranoid about me cheating, even though I wasn't. During an argument outside, he suddenly turned aggressive and dragged me to a secluded area, saying unsettling things that made me genuinely fear for my safety. Another time, convinced again that I was betraying him, he pushed me during an argument in a public place. I was crying on the floor while he told everyone around that I drove him crazy. People stepped in to protect me. A girl whispered, "Don't get up. It's not safe." I called the police. She might have saved me that night. And yes, back then I still believed he loved me. His love ended up documented in my medical file, and that's all I will say for YouTube. There were many moments when he acted aggressive at home, when I was scared or hurt, when he grabbed me, pushed me, or tried to overpower me emotionally and physically. Sometimes it was because I asked a question. Sometimes because I touched his shoulder during an argument, hoping he'd stop ignoring me. Once he became furious over a joke I made about keeping my own last name after marriage. He said every woman dreams of having his. I won't repeat the name, it's the kind of last name people usually mock. We never got married. If I went out with friends, he called my parents to check on me, making them worry for no reason. When he came back from a long trip, where he himself was unfaithful, he brought 2 bottles of alcohol, put them on the table, and said, "This is for you." When I told him to leave, he called his father, who then called me screaming, telling me to pack my things and disappear back to my home city. When I finally left to stay with my mom and kids, he immediately called escorts, and later confessed that to me himself. Then, when I got upset, he called my mom to say he couldn't handle being at home because of my behavior. He made me request a full year's phone records from the time he was in the army. Yes, I actually waited for him back then. Then he called the phone company asking if it was possible to retrieve the content of all my messages from that year. He also took money from my card while I was sleeping, and later got upset that I reacted the wrong way. When I confronted him about lying on top of another girl during a party, he said, "Well, you weren't the one sitting there, so it's your fault." He once destroyed my phone and got physically aggressive because he thought I met a friend he didn't approve of, even though he confused her with someone else. He said jealousy doesn't exist, and any concern I voiced was my female darkness. Sometimes he wouldn't let me sleep in bed and told me to sleep on the floor. If I moved to the living room, he'd wait until I dozed off and pour water on me to teach me a lesson. He became furious if I took too long in the shower, saying I must be doing something in there. I was even pregnant at one point, and instead of care, I faced anger and accusations. He said his cheating was my fault because I didn't behave. One time he didn't speak to me for a whole week because I painted my nails black. According to him, black nails are for people with mental problems. I used to wait for him at home with full meals and desserts, because his mother raised him to expect that. I cooked every day. One time he disappeared for several days. I waited at home, worried. Turns out he was with someone else the whole time. After 4 days he came home and said, "You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave. I don't love you." I begged him on my knees to stay. Before that, I had endured his aggression for a year. Once he even hit me in front of my best friend. She dragged me out and took me to the hospital. Did I leave him after that? No. I forgave him and came back. A year later he threw me out like nothing. I was a week away from turning 18. When we argued before bed, he would take away the blanket or push me off the bed saying, "I bought it." He demanded I tell him in detail about every partner I had before him, or he wouldn't let go of my arms. When I was too exhausted to cook or clean after working nights and dealing with anemia, he'd say, "I'll call my mom, she'll come clean." And he actually did call her. He installed cameras and listening devices in our place. Forced apologies under hot water. Once things escalated to the point where I had to run outside in winter with no shoes, terrified. He made threats about ruining my life if I ever left him. To this day, when someone knocks on the door unexpectedly, my body freezes. My sister's ex-husband was the same way, recording conversations, installing trackers, cloning her account, filing for divorce just to control her through court, trying to take her car even though he had his own. He kept saying she was nothing, nobody, always guilty of something, always failing him. Another partner wouldn't let me leave after we spent time together. I had to call my mom or sister to pick me up. He threatened self-harm and harm to me if I dared to walk away. I once jumped out of a car to escape. Another time I hid at a friend's house for 3 days while he drove around the entire big city looking for me. When I didn't apologize, he took my favorite clothes to pressure me. The end came when I told him, "Don't come near me. I don't want contact." He struck me, I lost a tooth, ended up in the hospital with facial injuries, and he went to prison. He once drove me out to the woods with a gun because I didn't cut off a friend he didn't like. After that, any time we argued, he'd put the gun on the table just to intimidate me. Have you ever been shamed for not being a virgin? Not just shamed, but pushed into breakdowns, humiliated, and then forced to lie straight to his face, telling him he was the first, even though he knew the truth. And in the end, he started getting physically aggressive. I'm grateful that at 18 I finally had the sense to leave. He was jealous even of tampons. He said I enjoyed them too much. He once shoved my underwear into my mouth, broke my finger, gave me a concussion, and there were so many bruises and clumps of hair ripped out that I could write a whole book. I screamed so loudly I lost my voice for a week. The neighbors said they never heard anything. I fought back as much as I could. But fighting off a grown man is almost impossible. He left me pregnant, alone, drowning in financial problems, and went on a beach vacation with his mother for 2 weeks. Later I found out he had slept in the same bed with her his entire 40 years. Has anyone ever tried to choke you out of nowhere after 4 years together? It happened to me. He once made me fill an entire sheet of paper with the sentence, "I will never lie again," because of something minor. Later I found out he was sleeping with someone else the whole time. We only dated for about 3 months, but during that time he used force twice, threw me outside without clothes in the winter, kept me locked in the bathroom for 2 hours giving me lectures, hit me on the head while I slept, and borrowed money he never returned. Very confident, very self-centered man, but because I grew up with a father who was the same way, full of insults and aggression, it didn't take me long to run. I lived 10 years with an abuser, and don't even ask me why. He destroyed my self-esteem so badly that I hid like a shadow, even though I used to be bright and confident. He kicked me for finding out about his affairs. He always said, "It's not me with you, it's you with me." Called me horrible names. Wouldn't let me eat after 6 p.m. I'm 5 feet 10 inches, weighed 61 kilograms, and God forbid I went up to 64. He isolated me completely, took my phone, locked me in the apartment while he was at work, even removed the clocks so I wouldn't know the time. I wasn't originally weak, he just knew how to manipulate slowly and expertly. And the fights were constant because I always defended myself, even though I kept losing. This is just a tiny piece of what happened. Thank God I finally ran to the opposite side of the country. If I put on makeup, I was a slut. I couldn't dress how I wanted, he'd say, "Look at yourself. Look who you look like." After my cancer treatment, we went to a doctor for a follow-up. The doctor called me by my first name, just normal human respect. He exploded, said that if I didn't text the doctor demanding to call me only by my last name, he would tear the whole clinic apart. I cried while sending that message. He smashed my head against the wall on March 8th, completely sober. And before anyone says I provoked it, all I did was throw his t-shirt onto the floor. He broke my head open and then spent years convincing me it was my fault for stepping on his things. Another ex forced me outside naked on the balcony and stairwell in -30 weather. Beat me until my body was blue. Cheated with some random woman and told her I was the one abusing him. Choked me, assaulted me, filmed it, and threatened to publish it. Cut his own wrists for fun and made me lie that he fell. Threw me out of the apartment in a big city, took my passport, and left me stranded. And I still kept running back to him. He created so many insecurities in me. For example, he'd grab me with a smile and say, "My favorite giant butt," pretending it was a compliment but making it clear he thought it was too big, even though it wasn't. But the worst insecurity was about my face. He'd laugh and call me a monkey. When I asked why, he said, "Your jaw makes you look like one, but I love you anyway." Years have passed and I still avoid mirrors because I can't unhear that. He blamed me for everything, even for finding messages from other women, even for not paying his rent, even for the snow outside. He once gave me a limited edition vape device, and later I learned it had a hidden recorder. He'd been listening to me for months. He'd scream if I accidentally bought the wrong item at the store or paid for a plastic bag at checkout. When I asked him to buy medicine for our child, he yelled, "I'm not a millionaire." After our divorce, when I officially moved out of his apartment, he texted to remind me I owed him 4 days of rent. We always split it 50-50ths. I know a woman whose husband beat her for things like counting the wrong number of sponge strokes while washing their child. Another man didn't let me buy new underwear, said I didn't need it. He put me in debt, destroyed my car for parts. Sold them, and disappeared. In a club once, I walked through the dance floor to go to the restroom. On my way back, I danced briefly with my friends. He accused me of wanting attention, and then set my hair on fire. In another relationship, we arrived at a rental apartment after a trip. It was evening, we ordered pizza. I was eating on the couch when he said, "Why the hell are you eating this late?" I told him, "If you have issues with your own body, don't project them onto me." He kicked me off the couch and hit me. I begged him on my knees to forgive me once. He slammed the door, cursed at me, refused to talk. When he was drunk, he'd take my phone so I couldn't call for help. Threw my things out the door. When I finally decided to leave, he unpacked my bags and wouldn't let me go or use my phone so no one could help me. I had to grab my stuff and jump out of a window to escape. Before that, he insulted me, cursed me out, apologized, cried, called me garbage, then threatened me with fake legal documents. After the breakup, he would secretly enter my apartment, go through trash and laundry, hack my laptop, read my messages. A year after my stroke, he came to the hospital just to say, "Wow, you look awful." His stalking messed me up for years. I still can't date anyone because of the fear. A few unforgettable moments. Once, drunk, he threw me to the ground in a park and slammed my head against the dirt while his friends watched and did nothing. Another time, while we were arguing on the street, he dragged me by the hair along a highway in a big city. He broke my nose and punched me repeatedly until I had a concussion. That was the last straw. What hurts most is that people heard and saw everything, neighbors, drivers, but no one helped. We lived in an apartment where the bathroom was combined with the toilet. While I was sitting on the toilet, he always sat on the edge of the tub to watch so I wouldn't text anyone. Every time I tried to leave, he manipulated me. Once he climbed to the 5th floor of a building across the street, sat on a windowsill with his legs hanging out, called me, and said he would jump if I didn't take him back. Another time he locked himself in a friend's bathroom and tried to cut himself. Another time he showed up at my parents' house crying and begging them to convince me to stay. His jealousy was insane. I don't believe you're home. Take a selfie with a fork in front of the TV right now. A friend of mine had just given birth and developed complications. She was rushed into emergency surgery, and when she woke up in the ICU and called her husband, the first thing he asked wasn't how she felt, but when she'd be home, saying, "How long are you planning to relax there? The cucumbers are growing, they need to be canned." Another man demanded I take a selfie next to a coffin to prove I was actually at a funeral and not cheating. We were engaged. He slept with some random girl and told me I should accept it because there's still time before the wedding and he needs to take care of his needs. When I called his behavior sick, he said, "I'd punch you in the jaw for that word if you were standing next to me." If this video resonated with you, hit subscribe, leave a comment, and share your story. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.